Okay, thank you so much, Irene, for that introduction. And it's an interesting way you've put it, as in what is the constitutional dimensions of debt? And of course, we know that the Constitution lays down a framework for our social, political, and economic administration. So of course, then debt becomes a very critical part of that, the economic part, in terms of how the country is run. So of course, now it's interesting that quite a number of these problems are ballooning or exploding after the 2010 Constitution came in. And so the issue somebody might, ask, the question someone might ask themselves is why when we have such a good framework, legal framework established by the Constitution to control public expenditure and therefore control public debt, why are we in this situation? The Constitution, of course, creates a very extensive and interlinked framework for how we run our affairs. And then, of course, this framework is strengthened through legislation that is meant to be passed by Parliament, and also through oversight institutions that are supposed to interrogate public decisions made by the executive and other institutions that are in the pipeline for developing our policy on economy. So of course, I'll just run through a bit of the overarching principles that we have in the Constitution that are actually supposed to enhance physical responsibility to ensure a thriving economy that is supposed then to be able to assist citizens to live a life of dignity, and including promoting and implementing the Bill of Rights, including Article 43 rights, which were now made justiciable by the Constitution. So of course, one of the main principles that we have in the 2010 Constitution, running through all the chapters, is public participation, participation of the people in policy development, participation of the people in legislative affairs, participation of the people in development planning, participation of the people in all aspects of public administration. So that is one of the main principles that runs through the Constitution. And you can find that even in the County Government Act, in the Public Finance Management Act, all of those legislations actually have as a central point participation of the people. The fact now that people are not being sidelined, and the physical planning is becoming an exclusive realm of political players, then that is concerning, because then that provides an opportunity, and that is what has led to this ballooning and of public debt, because people are not being involved in interrogating development plans, and therefore how those development plans are financed. And so then everything that is happening in secrecy allows for corruption to mushroom and for public finances to be wasted. So public participation is a big principle that runs through the Constitution. And of course, the other chapter that is meant to have come in to assist in physical responsibility in the country is the issue of leadership and integrity. That is chapter 5, I think, on leadership and integrity. No, not chapter 5. So the idea was, if we have elected officials that are driven that are disciplined and committed to the service of the people, and are competent and are elected or are appointed on the basis of personal integrity, some of the issues that we are having right now would not come in. So leadership and integrity chapter was supposed to be very pivotal in ordering our political class. Cabinet, like has been mentioned here, was supposed to be having people that are technocrats and are fairly recruited and are competent to assist the president in making decisions that are supposed to help the country. We were supposed to also have the public service that is, made up of people who are also competent, fairly recruited, and are also operating on the basis of proper personal integrity. We also have issues that also come in issues to do with how revenue raised nationally is shared equitably between the national government and the county government. And we have a whole framework of how that was supposed to be done. And one of the issues that is missing here and is critical is the issue of, governance between the national and county governments on the basis of cooperation, on the basis of cooperation and consultation. So, for example, for the Big Four agenda, which is actually getting into quite a number of the functional areas set aside for the county governments. And because we are borrowing heavily to finance this political promise or this Big Four agenda legacy project, whatever it might be, and the fact that the counties were not involved and I didn't see any evidence, of course, that they were involved and consulted in coming up with this project that is now actually taking away a lot of the resources that is supposed to be coming to the counties. Again, that principle of cooperation and consultation, which is in the Constitution, is not being adhered to, and therefore leading us to these problems we are having right now. There was also the issue of taxation. And the Constitution actually in chapter 12 mentions that taxation should be shared fairly. Taxation should be shared fairly between the poor and the rich. So now that we're having all these problems, again, that was a principle that is now not being adhered to. And now we are seeing, as Alena has said, the taxation is being borne now by the poor as opposed to the rich. And of course, there are also issues to do with prudent, public money shall be used in a prudent and responsible way. That is a principle that is supposed now to be safeguarded by the oversight institutions. That means Parliament, that means the Auditor General, that means the EACC, that means even the judiciary, because also it's an oversight institution in terms of public interest litigation. So again, that is a principle that is not being adhered to, and that therefore has led us to all these problems we are seeing now. We also have the principle of burdens and benefits of borrowing shall be shared equitably between present and future generations. So this generation, our generation, is the one that is creating a huge tax burden that will have to be borne by future generations unfairly if we don't take up our role as citizens to put a stop to this mushrooming public debt. And of course, the other critical issue is that the Constitution has it in chapter 12, has laid out all the responsibility of the various bodies that are supposed to come in to ensure that public money is spent well. It has provisions on procurement of public goods and services. It has provisions on control of public money through the National Treasury, through Parliament, and through the Auditor General. It has stated that actually the critical body that is supposed to control use of public money is Parliament. And of course, now with the problems with not having an effective opposition, we are now at this situation. Also, procurement of public goods and services must be cost effective. That is a principle that we find in the Constitution. So again, all this framework, the framework of how we plan, how we borrow, and how we spend, the framework of it is in the Constitution through principles that have been laid out, through institutions that have been established and financed by public money. The problem now is that these institutions and these principles are actually not being implemented by the institutions that are supposed to do so. We even have citizens who have been empowered to assist in the public administration, and through Article 35 on issues to do with access to information, and also through public participation processes. Again, this again is not happening and is not being made. These provisions are not being actualized by the president. By the executive front, mostly because of these PPPs that are not being disclosed. The SGR, agreements have never been disclosed. We are now in court trying to have the Huru Expressway PPPs agreements disclosed to the people, despite the, the rhetoric the president keeps on saying, let them be disclosed. They have never been disclosed. We asked for the whole JKI Expressway agreements on the basis of Article 35, and we were told they were still being negotiated, irrespective of the fact that we can see that the construction is going on. And because of that, they could not be disclosed. We are still trying to have them disclosed in court. So the fact that the government is planning and spending and borrowing in secrecy is allowing this situation to go on as it is. And so I think it is up now to us citizens to try again and to work very hard to use the tools we've been given in the Constitution to ensure openness in how governance is done. With openness, a lot of these things can be captured early.
Christine, please wrap up.
Okay, so again, the other thing I wanted to talk about is how the problems that the mushrooming debt will have on human rights protection, and as I'm sure somebody else will speak on Article 43 later on, so I won't talk a lot about it. But what we saw, of course, and I'll mention very quickly, is the issue that happened earlier this year and last year on the issue of revenue sharing between the national government and county government. And that's because there's a principle of predictability of resources to the county governments. The county governments are never able to fully plan and to plan well, because they are never sure how much they'll be able to get the following financial year. And that is because of these issues that are put in as a first charge, the national interest. So Big 4 agenda is a national interest.